In the summer of 1974, Jimi Hendrix was asked by a reporter who he thought was the best guitarist in the world. Without hesitation, Hendrix replied, "Terry Kath of Chicago. He's better than me." For those who know, this wasn't hyperbole. Terry Kath possessed a raw intensity and technical brilliance that left even the greatest guitarists in awe. Yet today, his name remains largely unknown outside of musician circles and dedicated fans. Before his life was cut tragically short at just 31 years old, Terry Kath helped create a revolutionary sound that would sell over 100 million records worldwide. As a founding member of Chicago, his innovative fusion of rock, jazz, and blues transformed popular music in the late 1960s and 1970s. But behind the virtuosic solos and powerful vocals was a complex man, gentle yet troubled, innovative yet traditional, a musical genius who never quite found peace with his own talent. This is the story of Terry Kath, the guitarist who could have changed everything, whose fingers created magic, and whose life ended with one tragic mistake. Early life and background. Terry Allen Kath entered the world on January 31, 1946 in Chicago, Illinois. A fitting birthplace for the man who would one day name his band after this musical mecca. Born to Ray and Evelyn Kath, Terry grew up in a middle-class home where music was always present. His father, a World War II veteran who worked for a shipping company, played the banjo and ukulele, inadvertently planting the seeds of musical curiosity in his son. As a child, Terry was naturally drawn to rhythm. Family members recall him incessantly tapping on tables, chairs, anything that could produce a sound. For his 10th birthday, Terry received his first drum kit, beginning a lifelong love affair with percussion that would later influence his distinctive guitar style. By his early teens, Terry had discovered the guitar, teaching himself to play on a beat-up acoustic his uncle had left behind. Unlike many guitarists of his generation, Kath learned to play left-handed on a right-handed guitar without restringing it, creating an unorthodox technique that would later contribute to his unique sound. At Chicago's Taft High School, Terry formed his first band, the Mystics, playing local dances and developing his musical chops. Though not a particularly dedicated student academically, his band director recognized his extraordinary talent and encouraged him to pursue music seriously. After a brief stint at DePaul University and an even briefer period in the National Guard Reserves, Terry committed fully to a musician's life. In 1966, he connected with drummer Danny Serafine and saxophonist Walter Parazider, fellow Chicago musicians looking to form something bigger than the typical rock band of the era. "We wanted horns," Terry later recalled. "Everyone was doing the guitar-bass drums thing. We thought, why not add some brass and really shake things up?" This initial collaboration led to the formation of The Big Thing, a 7-piece band that incorporated a horn section alongside traditional rock instruments. It was a revolutionary concept for the time, blending elements of rock, jazz, and blues into something entirely new. Within this innovative framework, Terry found his voice both literally and figuratively, emerging as a central creative force in what would soon become one of America's most successful bands. Rise with Chicago. The Big Thing quickly outgrew the Chicago club scene, and in 1968, at the urging of producer James William Guercio, the band relocated to Los Angeles. Guercio, impressed by their innovative sound and Terry's exceptional guitar work, helped them secure a record deal with Columbia Records. With this new chapter came a new name, Chicago Transit Authority, later shortened to simply Chicago, after legal threats from the actual transit authority. Terry's role in the band was multifaceted and essential. While the horn section gave Chicago its distinctive sound, it was Kath's fiery guitar work that provided the rock foundation. As the band's original lead guitarist, primary vocalist, and one of its principal songwriters, Terry's fingerprints were all over their early success. The band's self-titled debut album, Chicago Transit Authority, released in 1969, was unusually ambitious, a double album from a completely unknown group. The record company executives were skeptical, but Guercio insisted on giving the band creative freedom. This faith was rewarded when the album sold over 1 million copies, largely through word of mouth and relentless touring. On this groundbreaking debut, Terry's guitar virtuosity was unmistakable. His extended solo on freeform guitar was a revelation. A 7-minute experimental piece using only guitar and amplifier, without effects pedals, showcasing his mastery of feedback and tonal manipulation years before such techniques became commonplace. "I just wanted to capture the sound I get on stage," Terry explained in a rare 1971 interview. "Just me and my guitar having a conversation that nobody else is part of." Chicago's follow-up albums solidified their success. Chicago 2 featured the hit singles Make Me Smile and 25 or 6 to 4, the latter containing what many consider to be one of rock's greatest guitar solos, a blistering display of Terry's speed, tone, and improvisational genius. By 1972, Chicago had released 5 albums in just 4 years, all achieving platinum status. Their punishing tour schedule had them playing nearly 300 shows annually. At center stage was Terry, whose presence was magnetic despite his unassuming personality. Unlike many guitar heroes of the era, he didn't peacock or showboat. Instead, he would often stand nearly motionless, his expression intense, letting his fingers do all the talking. Terry never needed the spotlight, bandmate Robert Lamb recalled. He was the opposite of the typical guitar god. He'd blow your mind with what he was playing, but he'd be looking down at his guitar the whole time, almost embarrassed by the attention. This reluctance to embrace fame would become a defining characteristic of Terry's career. Even as Chicago grew into one of America's most commercially successful bands, consistently filling arenas worldwide and producing a string of hit singles that dominated radio throughout the early 1970s. Musical innovations and contributions. Terry Kath's approach to guitar playing defied conventional categorization. While most guitarists of the late 1960s were firmly planted in either the blues rock tradition or the emerging psychedelic scene, Terry effortlessly bridged multiple worlds, incorporating jazz harmony, classical precision, and experimental textures into his rock foundation. His technical innovations were numerous and influential. Terry pioneered the use of the wah-wah pedal as a rhythmic device rather than merely a soloing effect. He was among the first rock guitarists to regularly employ complex jazz chords and modal scales in a mainstream context. Perhaps most distinctively, his characteristic choked tone, achieved by playing close to the bridge with heavy palm muting, created a percussive attack that complemented Chicago's horn section perfectly. The way Terry played rhythm guitar was revolutionary, noted producer Phil Ramone, who worked with Chicago on several albums. He understood space. He knew when to play and when not to play. That's something you can't teach. Terry's contributions extended well beyond his guitar work. His gritty, soulful vocals provided a perfect counterpoint to Peter Cetera's more polished tenor. Songs like Color My World, Make Me Smile, and Tell Me showcased his emotionally raw singing style, a voice that could convey both vulnerability and power. As a songwriter, Terry consistently pushed Chicago beyond pop formulas. His compositions often featured unconventional structures, unexpected time signature changes, and harmonically adventurous progressions that reflected his jazz influences. Introduction from the first album exemplifies his compositional ambition, a 7-minute suite that seamlessly integrates orchestral elements, jazz improvisation, and rock intensity. Personal life beyond the bright lights and roaring crowds, Terry Kath maintained a relatively private existence. In 1970, at the height of Chicago's early success, Terry married Camelia Emily Ortiz. Their daughter, Michelle, was born in 1973, bringing a new dimension of joy to Terry's life that bandmates noticed immediately. Terry transformed when Michelle was born, recalled Chicago trombonist James Pankow. He'd carry her picture everywhere, showing it to anyone who'd look. For someone who was typically so reserved about his personal life, this was a whole new side of him. Home represented Terry's sanctuary from the chaos of touring. At his woodland property in Malibu Canyon, he built a recording studio where he could experiment without the pressures of commercial expectations. Here, surrounded by California's natural beauty, he would spend hours crafting guitar parts, working on unfinished compositions, and recording demos of songs that, tragically, would never be completed. Terry's relationships with his bandmates were generally harmonious, though complex. As Chicago's success grew, the group dynamic inevitably evolved. While some band members embraced the celebrity lifestyle, Terry remained uncomfortable with fame. He formed particularly close bonds with drummer Danny Seraphine and keyboard player Robert Lamb, with whom he shared similar musical sensibilities. "Terry was our anchor," Lamb later reflected. "When things got crazy on the road, he was often the voice of reason. He cared deeply about the music, not the trappings of success." Away from music, Terry pursued various interests that reflected his meticulous, technically minded personality. He was an avid collector and enthusiast of firearms, developing an extensive knowledge of their mechanical workings and historical significance. He enjoyed outdoor activities, particularly fishing and camping, finding in nature the peace that increasingly eluded him in his professional life. Terry was also fascinated by audio technology. He constantly tinkered with amplifiers and guitar electronics, customizing his equipment to achieve precisely the sounds he heard in his imagination. This technical curiosity extended to cars as well. He owned several vintage automobiles that he would painstakingly restore. Struggles and challenges. As Chicago achieved mainstream success in the mid-1970s, Terry Kath's personal demons began to surface. The punishing tour schedule, often 300 shows annually, took a severe toll, with Terry developing a serious alcohol dependency to cope with mounting pressures. His once athletic frame grew heavier, and his legendary energy on stage diminished. Simultaneously, creative frustrations mounted as Chicago's sound shifted toward radio-friendly ballads, moving away from the complex jazz-rock fusion Terry favored. "He felt we were losing our musical identity," keyboardist Robert Lamb explained. "Terry wanted to keep pushing boundaries, but the record company wanted hits." Terry's marriage showed signs of strain, despite his devotion to daughter Michelle. More alarmingly, friends noted periods of depression alternating with manic creativity, yet intervention attempts were consistently rebuffed. His fascination with firearms, once a controlled hobby, became increasingly reckless. Bandmates recalled disturbing instances where Terry handled guns while drinking. By late 1977, tentative signs of recovery emerged. Terry began working on solo material and discussed taking a break from the band to focus on health and family. Tragically, these plans would never materialize. Tragic end. January 23, 1978 began as an ordinary day. Terry Kath, on a week-long break from Chicago's touring schedule, was attending a party at the Woodland Hills home of Don Johnson, a technician who worked with the band. The gathering was relaxed, friends talking music, sharing drinks, and enjoying a rare moment of downtime. Throughout the evening, Terry had been handling and showing off his gun collection, a common occurrence among friends who knew of his fascination with firearms. As the night progressed, he took out a 9mm pistol that several guests had been examining. "Don't worry, it's not loaded," Terry assured the concerned onlookers as he playfully spun the gun around his finger. Moments later, in a devastating miscalculation, Terry picked up what he believed was another empty weapon, a .38 revolver. In a tragic demonstration to prove it held no ammunition, he placed the gun to his temple and pulled the trigger. There was one bullet in the chamber. The single shot killed him instantly. He was just 31 years old, 1 week shy of his 32nd birthday. The news devastated Chicago and the music world. "It felt like the heart had been ripped out of the band," Walter Paraziter later recalled. The funeral, held at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Los Angeles, was attended by hundreds of mourners, family, friends, fellow musicians, and fans united in shock and grief. Chicago considered disbanding, but ultimately decided that continuing was the best way to honor Terry's legacy. However, the band would never be the same. They hired guitarist Donnie Dacus as a replacement, but the intricate jazz-rock fusion that had been Terry's signature contribution gradually faded from their sound. In the aftermath, Chicago's music took a decidedly more commercial turn, a direction ironically opposite to what Terry had fought for in his final years. Legacy and impact. More than 4 decades after his death, Terry Kath's musical influence continues to resonate far beyond the confines of Chicago's catalog. While casual music fans might not recognize his name, Guitarists and serious musicians regard him with reverence bordering on worship. "Terry Kath was the backbone of Chicago," said Jimi Hendrix's engineer Eddie Kramer. "His technique, his feel, his tone, they were all absolutely unique. There's never been anyone quite like him before or since." In 1997, Chicago was finally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, an honor many felt was long overdue, and one Terry didn't live to see. During the ceremony, every band member acknowledged his profound contribution to their sound and success. The 2016 documentary Searching for Terry Kath, directed by his daughter Michelle Kath Sinclair, introduced a new generation to his artistry. This intimate portrait, featuring previously unreleased recordings and home videos, sparked renewed interest in his work. Guitar manufacturers have issued replica models of his famous modified Telecaster, complete with the distinctive Gibson humbucker pickup installation that helped create his signature sound. These limited editions sell out immediately, coveted by players seeking to capture some essence of his tone. If you've been moved by Terry's story, please subscribe to our channel for more explorations of music's unsung heroes. Share this video to help spread awareness of this extraordinary guitarist who, in Hendrix's estimation, truly was better than me. By keeping Terry's music alive, we ensure that his voice, both literal and musical, continues to inspire future generations of artists who dare to forge their own path.